Welcome to the Natural Genius podcast. We're here to help you tap into your natural genius. Let's go. Enjoy listening to Lucas. He has been introduced to me by Jel or Yelena, who has already been on Natural Genius. I hope you've enjoyed her conversation. Lucas has a background as a photographer and creative who has then transitioned into teaching creatives about finances and being able to balance the sometimes highs and lows of income as a creative. I'm so much looking forward to him, and in part because he's been so generous in his communication so far in us organising this conversation. So I hope you enjoy too. Oh, Lucas, welcome to the Natural Genius podcast. We're giggling already because we're talking about Aspen, where you're calling in from today, and also we were talking about the joy of the land there. And you were saying that in summertime it is beautiful
Yes.
and you enjoy snow with your family and friends. It's
Yes.
so lovely to hear about different locations around the world.
Well, I love your rock pool swimming that you're doing each morning, and thank you for sharing that with me. It looks incredible. Um, I guess I have my own version here. Yes, it's beautiful in the winter, of course,
Mm.
but right now we're in summer, and so everything's lush and green, and I'm very, very lucky. I live maybe a 4-minute walk from waterfall. And also, I was paddleboarding earlier. So we're surrounded by nature here. And while our town is known worldwide, it's very small. We only have about 7,000 people year round. So it's very, very tiny and it's
Mm.
pretty special. Yeah.
Oh, have you always lived there, Lucas?
No, I've been here about 23, 24 years, but
Mm.
I grew up between Florida and Southern California. I was actually a beach person, and at some point I came out here to snowboard, and I just wanted to see what it would be like to live in a winter place in a mountain town.
Mm.
And that was at 21, and the winter was incredible. I actually went over to Europe for the summer, but I ran out of money really quickly. So I came back here unexpectedly and saw Aspen in the summertime, which really, really blew me away. So I stayed. Yeah, I've left a couple times and come back, but yeah,
It's
it's a special
home.
place.
It's
Yes.
you've put down roots now. When I sort of do the preparation for these conversations, sometimes a flood of questions come through, Lucas. But for you, I just want to ask you about yourself and tell me about this amazing transition that you've made into supportive work, being able to help creatives with their financial outlook.
First off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I love the container that you're holding for everybody and sharing. It's really, really special.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So, I guess the simplest way to put it is I have been a creative my whole life. I grew up in a family of creatives. I did notice in my late teens that I also had a mind for business and was curious about that. So I was always kind of walking a tightrope between the two. At that time in my life, I thought that they were separate and viewed them as such.
Hmm.
And as a photographer, I loved taking photographs. I lived in New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Rome, even Sydney briefly. I spent a lot of time working on photography and struggling financially. Then I started DJing. And I DJed here in Aspen for a long time. I actually went around the world a little bit with that. And that was a lot of fun. I did that for many years as well and struggled with my finances. Then I come back to Aspen and I start a photo company here where we focus on events. And luckily, in this tiny little town, there's always things happening. So that business started to expand and grow. And for the first time in my life, my business financially was doing quite well. And so I figured My problems are solved. I've made it. Hallelujah. And then my financial problems got worse and worse. Yeah. So the more the money came in, the more intense my problems were getting. And that's when I realized, okay, I've got to do something about this. And so I started taking a close look at what I was doing and what I was not doing. At this time, I was also going inward. And I had some things going on in my personal life. Well, I guess the simplest way to put it is I felt like I was successful financially and in business, but I was very, very unhappy. And I think the first time I remember asking myself or asking the universe, maybe in my late 20s, like, is this it? Is this all there is to life? Because it feels very empty. And I kind of put that out of my mind for the next decade. But by my late 30s, it came back. And I have some success. By all accounts, on the outside, things look really good. But on the inside, I was at my lowest point. So I started to investigate that and figure out, I mean, initially it was, I need to find happiness, not understanding that it was already within, you know? And I started learning. And as the years progressed, I did start to uncover or remove the blockages to the happiness and to the joy and contentment. And I started to feel more like myself, which was great. But up until this point, I was still thinking that money and I guess you could say spirituality were separate still. I happened to be on a hike with a buddy one day who he had introduced me to a lot of the inner work and healing. But we didn't really talk about money very often. And we're on this hike and I asked him, you know, I was pondering this like real estate investment. I was like, would you be cool if I just kind of shared with you and maybe just give me a little feedback on what you hear? And he's like, yeah, of course. And so I share for a while. And basically he connects the dots for me. And he said, you're speaking as if money and business and finances and success are separate from your healing, and they're not. And that really shifted things for me. It shifted my perspective, of course, and there was kind of a domino effect because then I started to see all of the connections everywhere. And I came home feeling energized. I had been doing this kind of practice with my finances, and I guess the simplest way to put it is that I had begun paying myself first, i.e. taking care of me first. And that had transformed my finances. My bank accounts were full. I've always had irregular, inconsistent income my whole life, decades leading up to this. And I never felt stable. But because of this practice, I was feeling more balanced. And then I started looking at all of the connections and the correlations. And that's when I realized I can help my other creative friends with this. I can help my family with this. I can absolutely. So I started experimenting with it, testing it, helping friends and family. And that was probably 3 to 4 years ago. I had already been utilizing it for myself for about 6, 7 years. And that's how what I call the big split came to be. But basically where I'm at now is I work with business owners, I work with creatives, I work with anyone who does not resonate with the traditional approach to money. And basically, because I never resonated with that. I never liked budgeting. I never liked the confinement of what was going around finances. So I just created my own path using my own creativity. And that's where I'm at now. And of course, what I have now discovered at a much deeper level is when I work with people Some people are available for the deeper work, some people are not. Either way, it's all good. But for those deeper things going on around finances, it's been a lot of fun to dive into those with clients because I've experienced those myself as well. So it's, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here. And I have this really special place in my heart for all of the creatives out there. And I would point out that everyone is a creative, can be a
Mm,
lawyer, doctor, an accountant. You can still be creative.
mm,
And I like to nurture that, or see
mm.
people nurture it in themselves.
Oh, what a gift and what a privilege for you as well. And tell me about some of the examples of reactions or breakthroughs that the people that you've worked with have had that have really touched you.
It's why I love doing what I'm doing. And I still have a photo business and it's been fantastic. But one of the things that was not in that business was helping people at a deep level. And maybe a better way to phrase that is encouraging people so that they can help themselves. And around the finances, there's two different approaches that I see, and two different stories that I'll share. For some people who maybe are not readily available for the deeper, the emotional, the energetic, the spiritual, we just talk about bank accounts and numbers. And they
Mm,
start to apply this technique where they are taking care of themselves first, which is usually very foreign to most people. And they start seeing results in their bank accounts very quickly. And what's beautiful about that is it's very simple. You do see things happen quickly. There's a motivation that comes from that. And what I found is that those people then open up because they've relaxed a little and then they become available for the deeper stuff, which that surprised me. And I learned that with one of my closest friends. We met when we were 13 years old. We've known each other for a very long time. He's never known me as like a finance person ever. I mean, we were getting in all kinds of trouble with each other when we were kids.
we might do a part B on the trouble.
Oh yeah, there's some really good stories there. Although I don't know how many of them I want to share. Yeah, as long we've known each other a very long time, but he
Mm,
never knew me around finances. And we were chatting one day, and he started to reveal that he and his wife were not in a good situation, and there was a lot of shame, embarrassment there, and so he started to share with me. So I immediately jumped in and said, well, let me take you through this. And in the beginning, I was trying to speak to him and her at an energetic level. And I could see she was loving it and connecting to it, but his eyes were glazing over in the back of his head. And in our second session, I could see that if I didn't change something, I was going to lose him. So I kind of snapped him out of it, so to speak, by just talking about numbers, showed him everything connected. He ran with it. So they had 6 figures worth of debt, and within 5 months, half of it was gone. Within 9 months, all of it was gone. Within 12 months, not only had they wiped out 6 figures of debt, but they had saved 6 figures of debt. So that was pretty fantastic.
wow.
After that, and while that was happening, he felt so relieved and good
Mm,
because of the situation they had been in that they eventually quit their jobs, started a new business, and they've been doing that now for two years. So it set them on this path of freedom. And now when we have check-ins, he'll ask about some of the deeper things, and he'll recognize, because he could see it for himself by doing what I was talking about in that first session or two. So that's the first way to go about that. And that was kind of a surprise for me at first, because up until that point, I was trying to go in at the energetic level for everybody. And the second version of that is I actually just met with a client yesterday, And she has done some healing work, and she's at a place in her business where things are shifting in her industry. And she got wind that a client or two might be leaving due to, well, all kinds of things. And she could see that she has a choice on on how to respond to that, out of
Mm.
fear or out of, a solid foundation. And when you're in that, it can be tricky, especially when there's money involved and on the line. However, for the last couple months, as we've worked together, I've been teaching her some really, really practical financial techniques. So, one of those, for example, is when we have a regular inconsistent income, when it's coming in, we want to capture as much as we can and we want to spread it out as much as we can. The visual I always give is like a squirrel preparing for winter. You want to gather as many nuts as you can and put them in a couple places. So that's one of the things that you can do, spread out the income. But another thing you can do is spread out your expenses. And a simple way to do that, for instance, is rather than paying your credit card once a month, like they want you to, wonder why they want you to do that, because they make money on you doing that. But by doing that once a month, you kind of you get trapped in this cycle of always being behind. You're always responding instead of or reacting, excuse me. But a simple way to change that, to spread out your payments, is to pay them every single week, maybe even twice or three times a week to your credit card. And by doing this, you stay on top of your spending. And that keeps you more in tune with what you actually have. So this is what I would call the practical thing that you can do with your spending habits. But let's now take that into the energetic. We are used to these feast or famine experiences financially. All the money comes in, you get whatever you want, you have good time, and then the money dries up, and now you're back to barely getting by, paycheck to paycheck or whatever it might be. So we just want to take those extremes and we want to start creating more balance and lessen those extremes, which is the same thing that we're doing emotionally, internally. Instead of subjecting yourself to these wild swings where you're controlled by your emotions and your thoughts, if you can catch those, recognize that they're not you, take a deep breath, which is like making a payment, so to speak, then ultimately, over time and practice with breathing, that extreme reaction that you have becomes less and less extreme. And you get to a point internally where you can be surrounded by chaos and be completely calm. We just want to do the same exact thing with your finances. So they correlate. So with this particular client, she's face to face with a client potentially leaving, but also this client has been not super pleasant to work with. And she had gotten to a place where she decided, I think I'm done. I think I want to remove them from my life. And she did this morning. And she shared with me how freeing that felt. And I want to be clear here. There's a lot of money on the line. And she's
Mm.
fully aware of that. That was part of her hesitation, but she could recognize, the scarcity and the fear that was there. And she chose herself. She chose to pay herself first, to take care of her first. And now that part of that is the trust, the faith, and the patience for what comes next, because that clears away a space, right? And she had shared with me that up until she started learning about this for herself, she would hold on to every single client. She would never let go, and she would fight for them and all of these things. And I think that has its place, and if it
Mm.
makes sense. But if it doesn't make sense for you, if you don't enjoy working with these people, or it's whatever it might be, then yes, letting go of that can be very, very scary. But if you have your practices
Mm.
and you're showing up for yourself financially at the surface level, but also at the deeper level on an ongoing basis, these choices become much easier because you feel more stable. For everybody, when they start seeing their debt decrease and their accounts go up, that's usually very, very helpful as well. And then we explore from there.
I find this fascinating when I meet people that their history dictates what they're doing now. And one of the things I love in what you just said was that nuance of both numbers and energetics and the way that you approach into working with clients. And then also you had this beautiful nuance around paying yourself first. It's not actually just financially paying yourself. The example of letting go of a client is paying, like if I use myself as the example, it's actually paying me because I don't necessarily resonate with that client.
For me, the way I describe it is when I started to look inward and begin to heal, I recognized, and of course I read everywhere, all the answers you seek are within, right? Like, well, what does that even mean? Eventually, I started to figure that out through knowing and experiencing that. This idea of paying myself first, it really came about for me with a morning routine. And we talked about that a little bit ago. I had read a book called, I think it's called Miracle Morning. And he's basically sharing his morning routine and talking about how effective it is. So I start, and he encourages the reader to create their own. And this is how, through a lot of experimentation, I started to do yoga, meditation, eating like a beautiful meal that I'm actually present with as I'm preparing and eating and all these things. And what I was noticing, of course, is how good I felt as I was taking care of me. And then I realized, okay, well, I've been doing that with my finances. It's the exact same thing. And so to be clear there, and to your point, sometimes taking care of us is not what we would expect it to be. So in the very beginning, when I started splitting my money, I had almost $30,000 worth of debt. Taking care of me was getting rid of that because it was a heavy burden. Not just the idea that there was people waiting for me to owe them money, but the shame that I felt because I had gotten there in the first place. And now I'm just carrying it around as if there was, like, I couldn't do anything about it. But the truth is I was ignoring me. I wasn't taking care of me. I could even use more stern language there. But as I started to pay the money towards that, which, yeah, in the beginning, do I want to give this to a credit card company? Not really. I want it. But as I watched that go down, I started to open and I realized, whoa, okay, this actually feels really good. Let's keep going. And I was able to wipe that out in 5 months because the feeling that I was getting from taking care of me was incredible. And it's something I hadn't really done before. Taking care of yourself first could also be building that business that you've been thinking about, or contributing to people in your life, whether it's time, money, or your gifts, whatever it might be. There are many things that we can do to take care of ourselves. At that time, in the very beginning, I recognized that for some reason, when I would go into the market, the grocery store, and I was at the checkout counter, I would never look the person in the eyes, and I don't know why, but I didn't like that I was doing that. So paying myself first was me going in, looking them in the eye, looking at their name, using their name, connecting with them, watching them smile, feeling me light up. It's like, wow, that's simple. And that's taking care of me. So it can be any one of those things, including removing the things that are not serving you. And that could be a client. It could be a debt. It could be, there's a myriad of things that it could be, but it's just as important, in my opinion, to remove the things that are not supporting you, that are not helping you, or sometimes you don't even have to be that extreme. You can just temporarily put them on pause because there might be something in there that is actually good for you in little tidbits, or little pieces. So yeah, it's recognizing, and something that actually I shared with a friend of mine just today is, if you had to give a percentage to your day, how much of the percentage are you taking care of you versus
Mm.
everyone else? And for her, she was 95% everyone else, 5% herself. And so the last voice note I left her was, switch it and see what happens, you know? And I suppose the mind goes, the ego goes crazy of like, well, we can't do that. And here's all the reasons why, right? But if you breathe and relax and soften into the idea of 95% taking care of you, which also means helping other people, but not at the expense of yourself, everything shifts, including your finances.
Oh, I'm getting so excited about people listening to this episode. Your life must have changed so much because some of what you're describing to me, Lucas, is nuances of your own personal development that beautifully you're passing on to others now. But tell me about, yeah, your photography business, for example, or even that amazing sup experience that you had today. How are those sorts of things changing since you've started this big split or since you went through your own big split for yourself?
Well, the photography business, that's been 13 years. It's been fantastic. I have shifted my perspective on it because I realized that I actually am bringing a lot of joy. And for a long time, I was thinking, well, I'm not really helping people. And, so I was kind of down on it. And I realized, well, that's not the case at all. We've
Mm,
captured over 4 million photos in the last 13 years. 95% of those people are smiling, laughing, having a good time. It could be at somebody's wedding. It could be at whatever, all kinds of different events and all kinds of different reasons. I've met lots of incredible people with it. And it allowed me to continue to write my own rules, so to speak, by being a business owner, which is
mm,
why I love working with business owners, because, you know, it's really, really easy to take what we see, especially in, 9, 10, 14, 15 years old, and think this is it. This is life. And most people aren't questioning that. I was really lucky. I had an uncle, two uncles, and a grandfather who, one of them outright said it, but the other two just showed me by example. But to question everything, to remain curious, and if for no other reason, to see what you can create. And that for me turned into, if the crowd is running in that direction, the herd is going that way, I'm running as fast as I can in the other way.
mm,
And that pattern, by breaking by being continuously being creative and curious and asking questions, it led
mm,
me down this path. So it's been the same thing with the photography. It was not easy. I mean, the reason I shared that in the beginning was I spent 2 decades. Um, I don't know if you have it there, but here we have these packets of ramen noodles that are like $1. And
mhm,
that's what college, university kids are eating. So I did that for 2 decades in that time. But I wouldn't have changed it for the world because I was
mm,
creating my own path. And there was a lot of instability and fear, which is why I eventually created a financial thing where there could be some, at the surface level, stability. Um, but yes, it's allowed me to continue to expand. And I've even started to look at a new area of the photo business, or I might just start going back to shooting for myself on business, not business related in any way, shape, or
mm,
form.
mm.
Same thing for the DJing. I think for any professional who has something like that, you do it long enough, it's easy to get burned out or not want to do it anymore.
Mm.
And it's part of the reason I stopped DJing. But it's been enough years now where I can continue to do it for me, which is honestly the main reason I started. Was I just love music and I
Mm.
couldn't play instruments, so I just wanted to do that. So for me, it's helped me grow and expand. And I will say, as a creative, because there is some stability in my bank accounts, it allows me to show up not stressing about money, which allows me to be even more creative.
You just reminded me too, before we came on, I was listening to some really lovely upbeat music. And I have a feeling that one of the tracks, they elongated the word money and it's just popped into my head. And I thought, oh, that's so funny. I didn't even know that you were a DJ before we started chatting. And I must send you that song. It's
Please,
a
yeah.
complete pleasure to hear your story, Lucas. I want to bring in Peter Crone too, because part of the reason that we've met is through the amazing and lovely Jill or Yelena, and you two met through Peter Crone's community.
Yes.
So tell me a bit more about Peter Crone's work that you've done with him and how that's influenced you.
Yes, and I want to give a shout out to Jill as well. I love that she connected us. She's an incredible human being. She's creating a lot of really incredible things and has been for a long time. Yes, we physically met last July, so almost a year ago, in California at Peter Crone's first in-person meetup. We had both taken part in his mastermind, and I first came across Peter Crone, I want to say about 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6. And I think it was just in my feed, Instagram
Mm.
feed or something. And he just spoke, and everything he said made sense to me. And it just clicked. And I was like, who is this? So I started investigating. And at that time, he had done a lot of podcast interviews. So I was finding interview after interview, and I was listening to every one of them. And every one of them was making sense. And the way I always described it was, up until that point, a lot of the spiritual books, courses, things that I've read, a lot of it does tend to get into the esoteric, which is fantastic, but it's also up for interpretation. Peter cut through the red tape of all of that for me. And it just made a lot of sense. It was very grounded and very current, what he was sharing. And he eventually announced his first mastermind. It was not inexpensive. And up until that point, I had never done something like that for myself. But I was getting so much value from all of these podcast episodes. And I did he has a couple, inexpensive courses on his website. And I thought, you know what, I'm all in. And at that time, it was a 6-month, experience with a group of like-minded people. So started off, and it blew me away. The very first session. By session 3, so this is just at that time 1 session a month for 6 months. By the 3rd month, I couldn't handle it. This guy was blowing my mind, and everything that I thought was true in my life, I could see from a different perspective, which is it's kind of challenging to take all that in. You're telling me everything I thought is not actually a truth? That's a lot. I had to sit with that course for 2 years. The lessons from that course, I put other books and courses and things like that on complete hold because there was so much nuance in all of it. And I really just wanted to give myself the space to feel into these things. So several years later, I think he might be on Mastermind 10 at this point. I think he does it in a 3-month period. I know Jel did it. I think she may have done it a couple times actually. And then we connected as masterminders. And from there, we started talking about money and we worked together in that arena. And that's how that came to be. As far as Peter goes, one of the things that's always resonated with me is if you want to change your life, change your perspective. It's that simple. Is it simple to do? Maybe not. But the idea of it is that simple. And that was actually where the big split was born as well. In month 4, I was really starting to wrap my head around the idea of shifting my perspective and taking things that had been in my life, patterns, routines, relationships, and trying to go up in a helicopter 10,000 feet, look down at the whole thing, and then shift and come back down from a different angle, a different perspective. And as I started to do that, that's where everything around the finances was flowing as well. And I could see more connections happening around money in what I would call the internal work. So for me personally, his work has completely transformed my life. He is the person that has opened the door and I've walked through. I've made that choice. And I can't get enough of it because it's, for me, very, very actionable. And as I apply these things, I'm experiencing the results. He's a pretty powerful guide.
Isn't it amazing to observe people that can get that cut through, like yourself?
It goes back to what you said earlier about looking back at your life, kind of like you're starting to see all the puzzle pieces coming together. There are all these skills and experiences and things that maybe don't go very well that we go through in life. And every one of those is training. And when I started my photo business, it was like I got all these green lights where all of these things that I had done a decade earlier that I thought I would never use ever again came together to help me build this photography business. And I could see it happening in real time, thinking to myself, whoa, I never thought that I would ever call on this particular skill, but here it is. And it's actually quite integral to what I'm creating now. And I can also see that with the financial thing. To me, it's when we look at our lives and start to connect all of the dots, it becomes very, very clear why we have these inclinations, these intuitions. And really what I've been learning for the last couple of years is that was intuition whispering to you the whole time. It's just I didn't know that. Everything was so noisy and loud in my life, and it was constant go, 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 go. I could never hear intuition whispering to me because it's not going to shout, right? It's just going to whisper. And the more that I started to quiet down the distractions and tune in, I could see that. It's interesting you said that as well. This is one of the things that Peter really hones in on in the beginning was, if you did one thing to improve every relationship in your entire life, listen. That's it. All you have to do is listen to what that human being in front of you is saying. And don't just listen with your ears, but listen with your eyes, with your energy, with everything. Be there, be present. When I started to apply that, which it's challenging, not the best at it, he's right. Every relationship expands and grows. Everyone wants to be heard.
What I get from you in this conversation is that happy heart in terms of being able to feel that, yes, there's growth to come, and also there's that openness to be able to be ready and curious enough about that next nuance or that next learning.
Yes.
Yes. And doesn't that bring that's like gems and joy and sweetness of life?
I agree. The way that I describe this process in the beginning, when I started to look inward, I was the most unhappy I'd ever been. And as I started to heal through practices, not only did I start shedding everything that was not me, but my chest started to open. My heart started to burn much brighter, this light. And I could see how, as I shined my light brighter, that it was then igniting other people as well. And so I kept going. And I look at that now, and I recognize that more and more of us are coming online, more and more of us are understanding this. And the more that we open, and as Peter puts it, pure, we step into pure possibility, the more that it has that ripple effect, right? And it's the same thing with your finances. It's the same thing with the challenges. You take on one, you get to the next and the next, that kind of a thing. To the point where I'm now at, and very recently, within the last month, I realize that I am. And what I mean by that is I used to continuously look at things in my life as separate. It started with the finances and business and success versus spirituality. I thought they were separate. I thought that I was separate from other people, and we can just go down the pathway of that. But what I'm recognizing now is I'm all of it, and I'm a part of it and connected. And the more I actually just relax into that knowing, then everything just has this beautiful way of just unfolding. I'm not trying to get away from this current experience, this life. I'm just enjoying it. I'm relaxing into enjoying it and watching as the universe and God just unfolds this incredible thing before my eyes, recognizing that it's not actually on me to plan anything, to be busy, to hustle, and to scheme or to figure things out. I don't have to do any of that. It's just here. And my part, at least the way I look at that is I get to keep asking questions and keep being curious. And with each one of those, this light expands even more. And I do think we're in this really special time, especially around the technology piece, because it connects all of us. And we get to experience that with each other and watch as that opens and occurs. And the way I've looked at it is, there's been many days, many times over the years where it hasn't been a good day. And I've been maybe a little too focused on the intensity of what's happening in the world. But I'm always called back to what's happening right here. And just today, actually, this morning, I was going to make a post on Instagram, and there was kind of a negative connotation to it. And I realized, there's so much of that everywhere. Why don't I post something different, something that spreads a little bit of joy, a little bit of light in a small way? And so I see that, and it's the same thing. And I think it's the exact same thing that you're doing, providing this platform for all these incredible, brilliant, bright lights that are shining and sharing. Because that's what this is. It's we're here to share all of it because it's us. I don't know. It feels very cool, and I don't know. I feel like I'm moving further and further away from the idea of business and how to be productive and all of these things. Like, that'll just take care of itself. Now, I had to go through a lot of years and strife to figure that out, and a lot of practices to even feel balanced enough to even say that. And I think that each person, it's necessary for them to have their own version of that, their own experience, but it's there. And I think one of the biggest pieces, at least for me, has been to apply what you're learning as fast as you can. I think it's really easy to get with books and courses to do all these things, podcasts, and hear it, but then to not actually apply any of it. This is something Peter said in the very first class I ever took of his was, if you have to keep coming back, you're not doing it right. You shouldn't be here more than once or twice in this lesson. And I really loved that, because it's very easy. Like I'm always learning. We're always learning, but it's very easy to get caught up in that routine and not actually apply.
Mm.
And sometimes it's just another person that I really like is RJ Spina. And he talks about this as our willpower. Just do the thing. Just have the discipline to do the thing. And you might be surprised at the result of doing the thing instead of thinking about the thing. And just taking that action and going from there. So I don't know. I think it's a little of both, being completely open and patient and relaxed, while also taking responsibility for yourself and doing the things that you can do each day that contribute to yourself and others,
So golden. So I'm curious about the morning routine that you mentioned. Tell me what sort of yoga you do.
Great question. Thank you. I don't get asked that very often. My first response is, I don't know what the yoga is called, meaning the style. I've never been that interested in that. What I was interested in, what was happening inside of me during the sessions, right? But what I can say is I was introduced to a gentleman named Travis Eliot probably 8 years ago.
Hang on.
Do you know Travis Eliot? Okay.
I've done his 30-day for years and years and years. I must have done it 20 times at least.
Yes.
And anytime I feel like I need to come back into my yoga practice.
Yes. I love that you know who he is, that you actually practice his yoga. And this is how, for me, I hadn't even been doing yoga. I kept getting injured doing the typical guy workout at the gym. And I was only 38 at the time. And I was like, I should not be getting this injured. What is happening? And a buddy of mine I was working with once, we were actually staying in a hotel room together for this photo job that was a week long. And it required us to be standing on the pavement all hours of the day. And I had just injured my back, like picking up a roll of, tape or something. And so I'm not excited about, like, how am I going to do this for this whole week, standing on the concrete? This is going to be painful. And he starts talking about yoga and how it can heal you. And I had never had anyone say that yoga could heal you. And I'm like, what do you mean? So he describes, he had hip problems. He had 2 hip surgeries. Nothing fixed it. His mother, who was an original hippie back in the day, did a lot of yoga. She knew of him. And this was before his company, Interdimension TV. He had worked for some other company, and he created a 108-day video challenge. I think it was called Ultimate Yogi. And she had bought it for herself. She did it. She gifted it to her son. And her son was like, no, surgeries can't help. Yoga's not going to help. He did the 108-day challenge. His hip was healed. So he tells me this, and I'm like, what? I'd never heard of that with yoga. So he gives me the 108-day challenge. I start it. Within the first week, I'm in love, not only with Travis and his style, but each one of these sessions, is 90 minutes, and everything in my body just turned on. The electricity started flowing thanks to his guidance, especially around the breath. So for me, I think I got really, really lucky because I wasn't in a yoga studio. I wasn't looking at other people, worrying about what I'm wearing or what is my pose right or anything. I was in my living room, usually in my underwear, doing this with his guidance. And I loved his stories and his parables. All of these things helped me go inward. So Travis Eliot is the reason that I started going inward and healing and seeing progress as quickly as I did. I did that 108-day challenge. Then I did it 5 times total all the way through. So that's a couple years. every single day, going through that. Then eventually I joined his Interdimension TV, him and his wife, Lauren. And I started to experiment with more teachers, not just Travis. I have my favorites. I'm sure everyone does. And they have been with me. I've been on the beaches of Hawaii. I've been in Italy. I've been in parks all around the world with them doing yoga. And as you know, there's yin yoga, which is my absolute favorite. There's restorative. There's what they call power
Wow.
yoga. There's gentle yoga, which is another favorite. Each one of those teachers, Brittany is one of my favorites. Lauren is also one of my favorites, in addition to Travis. Where they take me
Mm,
during that time that I'm on the mat, so to speak, is incomparable. And
mm.
if Peter Crone has done a lot for me in my transformation, but Travis has done more, and the entire Interdimension TV family, they have given me so much. I've never strayed because when I've gone to in-person classes locally, I recognize like, oh, the Travis and his family, the Interdimension family, they're like the creme de la creme. I got into it, and to the point where, like you, I would share them with so many people. I have been at so many campsites with friends, with Travis on a little
Oh,
tiny iPhone, and everyone's watching. We're at the campfire. It's at night, stars
oh my
above, or
gosh. Oh,
morning.
no.
And yeah, like in that particular series, he doesn't really do that anymore. But like in that particular series, he was fun because he was talking about some really deep stuff, but also he's like this surfer bro kind of guy. And I was like, I like this guy. It was very approachable, you know? Yeah.
Totally. Can you still get the 108-day challenge somewhere?
Yes, he actually on Interdimension. So he
Oh, it is
renamed
on
it.
his.
There's two different 108-day challenges on there, and they are phenomenal. They are life changing. Had I not started with the 108 day, I don't know that 8 years later, not a day missed, I would still be there, because that was when I was internally at my lowest.
Mm,
And this was also over the lockdowns. All of these things that I had been running away from my entire life. You know, I was raised in the Catholic Church, good Irish Catholic boy. We don't feel our feelings, we push them down, we just move on. So at this point, all of that is coming to the surface. For 2 solid years in my house, it was me and Travis and I, excuse me, and all of this pain and stuff that I had been running from was coming to the forefront, and he was the guide. When I say he's done more for me than anyone else, I genuinely mean that, and it's really cool to be able to express that. And
thank
in
you.
fact, yeah, the when I said earlier I am, the other piece to that is that last week I'm reading RJ Spina, and I'm recognizing that I don't have to have parts anymore, that I am like I'm all one. And I realized this on my paddleboard, surrounded by nature. And as I realized this,
Yes.
this monarch butterfly comes over, lands on my board as I'm floating. And then this hummingbird comes by, and more monarch butterflies come. And all of these animals start coming around me. And I was like, of course they are, because I am. And everything came together. So there was no division. We have, so Aspen is named Aspen because we have these trees called aspen trees, and these leaves, they shimmer in the wind and they make this sound. And on my where I'm paddleboarding, you're surrounded by these.
I would say you've made it with experience like the stand-up paddleboard and the butterflies and the beautiful hummingbirds. But I have a feeling that there's more you've made
Yeah,
it moments to come.
there's more coming. And I got out of my own way, the butterflies and the hummingbirds showed up, and I'm like, this is actually easy because I don't really have to do anything except let go of what I think I'm supposed to be doing. Challenging to
Goodness.
get there, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not
And
downplay that. How lucky we are.
We are. And we have these teachers, these mentors, right? And we learn from them a great deal. But one of the things that we're learning is that we can open and we can continue to open and share. And
Mm,
they have blazed a pathway through, and we are doing the same thing. And
mm,
that is fantastic. And it just builds momentum. We're lucky. And I'm just
mm.
so glad that I'm here right now, not only with you, but I'm glad you're here doing what you're doing and opening. I'm glad that I'm doing the same thing. And I'm glad that we're surrounded by people and connecting to people who are doing the same.
It's so fun to meet somebody who I wonder if you're a curious kid. And I do love that we brought your friend from
Yeah.
13, a great age, running from the police as well. I mean, seriously, we got some spice in here, didn't we?
Yeah, we'll finish it with one of those. Basically, we were just out doing what we're not supposed to be doing. Occasionally, we get back to my friend's house, and actually, I do remember one night we climbed into the window. He lived on the second story. We climb in. We're trying to be quiet, and we both get in, and his dad's sitting in the corner in a chair in the dark, waiting for us. We were so scared because we didn't see him at first, and he's just sitting there, and his stern voice, "You boys have fun?" Yeah, yeah. There was one last one where that same dad caught us. Not only did we sneak out, we had taken his car, his Mercedes. We pushed it down the street, turned it on, diesel, so it's loud. We took it out. We picked up a third friend. We're at this point, we're like 14, 15. We have no driver's license or anything. It's 3 a.m. We are driving around for a while. We're taking turns driving. I hadn't had my chance yet. We pull up to a traffic light. We look over, and there's his dad pulled up next to us. He's like, "You boys having fun?" Yeah, that was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. And I'll leave it at that.
Have you
Yeah.
seen that dad in recent times
Oh,
at
yeah.
all?
Yeah. I want to say about 4 or 5 months ago. And we were actually, at breakfast reliving some of these stories.
I do love that inversion when you reflect from and you hear the parents' point of view.
Yes. Yeah. He was pretty gracious, to be honest with you.
It
He could have
sounds
been a
like it.
lot more disciplined and upset, but he was pretty relaxed. After that, we never did that again. Of course, we didn't take the car again. And we shaped up a little bit here and there. But I think for me, the way that always played in was, think for yourself, question authority, question the things that are being presented to you, and that has always served me really well. Not in like I have to be super defiant and disobey everyone, but think for yourself and question
Mm.
authority. Yeah.
What a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening to the Natural Genius podcast. Please share this with anyone who came to mind and visit us at naturalgenius.com.au. Thanks so much.